Welcome back to the Make It Click podcast hosted by Borderless AI. I'm Willson Cross, and today we have Andrew Graham, the co-founder and CEO of Borrowell. Borrowell has been around for over 10 years. They've raised $90 million, and they're one of Canada's leading FinTech companies, helping Canadians, over millions of Canadians, better their credit score and build leading financial tools for everybody that lives in this country. Today we get into a lot of intricate topics. What's it like, starting a company when you're still at, your corporate job? How do you resign and jump into startup mode? How do you raise your first, few dollars of funding? How you get those first customers? We go into, how important a customer obsessed culture is. What Andrew took from kind of working at companies like, George Weston Limited, President's Choice, going to school and getting his MBA at Harvard. How do those things really truly help you in building a company and a fast growing one at that? So very, very kind for Andrew to jump on today, and looking forward to getting after it. So let's get into it.
Have you ever met anybody for the first time on a live podcast?
I've never met anyone for the first time on a live podcast. I'm not sure. Usually I know the people who I'm talking to.
Well, I'm Willson, and you're Andrew Graham. You're the CEO of Borrowell, borrowell.com.
That's right.
Maybe give the group watching, what do you guys do? How long have you been around? High level specs on the company, where are you located, that kind of thing.
Sure. So we help people feel more confident about their finances. That's the short version of it, and I think it's very accurate. Personal finance is an area that's very complicated, very stressful for many people. In fact, when you survey people and ask them what keeps you up at night, the number one response by far is my finances.
Yep.
We know that finances and worrying about finances causes a ton of stress, whether it's just day-to-day stress or stress on relationships.
Yep.
And so from the beginning, we've always been focused at Borrowell on helping people feel more confident and more in control of their finances. And so how we've done that has changed over time, but that's always been really the North Star for us.
I guess kind of that last point you mentioned, how you've done it, it's changed over time. A lot of folks viewing this. There are a lot of founders, aspiring entrepreneurs, a lot of people in tech. Have you ever pivoted in the business, pivoted in your career? I know you started very corporate, very Canadian and very corporate, working in M&A. I believe Galen Weston's group, you were in corp dev. Maybe talk a bit about how you even became a founder. Because the first 5 years of your LinkedIn anyways, it doesn't scream founder necessarily.
Yeah.
So, but everybody obviously has their own path. Just want to, and then has the business pivoted at all? It sounds like the vision has always been constant, but what about the actual product roadmap, the business model?
Yeah, I think on a personal level, I've certainly had pivots in my career. I started off working in politics. I actually worked on Parliament Hill as sort of a political staffer for a number of years in my 20s. And that was a great set of experiences I had there. I got to learn a lot about how politics and government works. I got a lot more responsibility than I probably deserved, given where I was at in my career. But those were that was the nature of the kind of role I had, and I had some great bosses who gave me a lot of responsibility and put trust in me.
And that was in Toronto?
That was in Ottawa.
Okay.
And then from there, actually, I went and did an MBA. So I like to say I sort of had I brought a bit of a diversity angle to my MBA class because I was coming from a political background. I was Canadian. I went and studied in the States.
Yeah, Harvard.
I was at Harvard Business School.
Most people that go there would say, I went to Harvard, but I had to take it out of you.
Well, look, I had a great experience there. It was really terrific couple of years of my life. And I think I got great value because I came in knowing far less about business than most of my fellow classmates, many of whom came from consulting or investment banking. So I went there for 2 years, Harvard Business School, very focused on, you're going to learn about business, but really you're going to learn a broad set of leadership skills that are applicable in different, many different sectors, right? Like knowing how to read a balance sheet, knowing how to manage a team. That's relevant no matter what sort of sector you're in if you're going to be a leader. So it's a great program, in that way, and certainly a place that I had a lot of fun and met some great people that I'm still in touch with and friends with today. From there, came back to Canada. Hadn't worked in the private sector, and so got to know a gentleman who was chief financial officer at Nortel, which was certainly going through a period of a lot of change.
Yep.
And then I joined, and soon after the company, this was in 2008, ended up actually going into bankruptcy. Me joining, I don't think it had anything to do with the company joining, going into bankruptcy, but going through that experience and being there for a couple of years during the bankruptcy process, sad as someone who cares about Canada and cares about Canadian business, because we really lost an important company there, but fascinating from a career perspective. And then from there, the same gentleman who hired me went to work for the Loblaw Weston organization.
That's right.
I went with him and ended up with a really interesting role in the financial services group there, running a line of business. I found that I really liked being, sort of running a business or a part of a business, part of a P&L day to day, but was increasingly wondering whether the big company route was right for me. And ultimately decided to take the leap and start my own venture, Borrowell. And really, there's been no looking back. It's been a terrific decade, I guess, since then. And I think this is a much better fit. I mean, I think part of what you do over the course of a career is try different things and decide what's going to be a good fit. What I think what you got to solve for is, what am I good at and what do I have fun doing? And this has been certainly a much better fit on the what do I have fun doing part of it. Maybe on good days I'm good at it. But certainly it's been a lot more fun.
Awesome. And is that kind of, there's a lot of founders, a lot of them financially driven. You meet a lot of maybe more bootstrapped entrepreneurs. They're very lifestyle driven. You're saying fun. Was there a thing about personal finance that was a draw? Was there kind of a unique challenge prior to that? Was there kind of a lead up into taking the leap, something currently or something that you were working on in your day to day and your day job that said, I could do this better? Or was it more like I want to have more fun in my career. I want to do something that matters, do it myself, put my stamp on it. Was there kind of a characteristic that drew you to starting Borrowell?
Yeah, and I fun is maybe a bit glib or simplistic.
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
I think maybe satisfying is or a good fit with what you like doing. Maybe is what I sort of to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Certainly for me, I've always liked building things. I think I've also liked having a high degree of control over my day to day and my career. And so, in a bigger company, you can have the opportunity to build things, but the degree of control is always going to be less because you're going to have a boss and they're going to have a boss and there's a big organization. So, based on what I like to do, I think this path, being an entrepreneur and running essentially my own thing. I'm a terrific co-founder, of course, and we have investors and a board, but day to day, I've got a lot of control over what I do. Has been for me a really good fit. A piece of advice I got early on that's really been, I think, very true when I was thinking about sort of the corporate route versus the founder route. Someone said to me, you're going to have bad days in whatever job you do, which is absolutely right. A bad day in a big company is typically about frustration, right? You run up against, you don't get the approval from the person you need, or the decision's delayed a few weeks and you got to wait. Whereas a bad day when you're a founder is often about fear, right? It's like, am I going to be able to make payroll next month? Is this company going to survive? And, I was really hoping we'd close this financing and it's not going to close. So I think there's no right answer to which of those emotions is better. I think there's a lot of personal reflection you need. And for me, I would much rather deal with the fear and the frustration.
Interesting.
So for me,
that's a good one.
I've much preferred the founder route, but I don't. That's really a reflection of what I want. I think more than anything.
I meet a lot of founders. Obviously, just being a founder, you'll meet a lot of founders. We just kind of met, and there's definitely a click when you meet a fellow founder. Do you look back at your time, kind of more corporate, and go, "Oh, there's some people you work with that certainly just wouldn't be cut out to be a founder," and were any experiences you did? Did it make you a better founder, or was it simply like, hey, all the experiences I had leading up to Borrowell, they were helpful and like definitely helped me a little bit, but really learning on the job, actually founding it, buying the domain, doing the first website, that's like you really learned on the job. So I guess the question, but did you learn on the job more than, or were you really primed for it?
I think there's lots that I gained from the earlier stages of my career. So I have no regrets about doing what I did. I think the experience working in politics was like super formative.
Yeah.
Again, I got a ton of responsibility that more than I probably deserved. I spent part of my time working for the government official, the minister in charge of Canada's foreign aid program. I got to travel all around the world. I learned a ton about the world, I suppose, in different countries. That was a hugely valuable experience. And then working in big corporate and seeing how big companies run, going through a global, essentially M&A process at Nortel, where we were taking the company into component parts. The parts often had intellectual property in the form of patents. They had offices and staff in different countries. Having to be able to take that up those things apart and work with buyers and sellers, I've learned that taught me a huge amount. Spent a lot of time working with lawyers on the actual deal documents. That's been like very, very helpful for me at Borrowell with financing and other things. So there's a lot that I learned in those other roles. It's true that there's things you only can learn about founding a company once you do it and become a founder. But
and how much of that is like true learnings versus just kind of the grit to keep going? Or is it like, hey, I actually learned how to close customers during Borrowell? Or are there like true, tangible professional learnings? Or is it, because for me at least, I've learned a lot of good experiences. I've only ever worked at companies I've started. I've never worked anywhere. And looking back, I probably should have. But to me, it's really a characteristic is just kind of the grit to keep going. Has that been more kind of the founder story for you, or is it more like, hey, I learned like these 5 tangible skills starting Borrowell?
Look, I think it's been a mix. For sure, the attitudinal stuff like grit and getting used to the idea that things are often not going to go well, and learning lessons like things are rarely as good or as bad as they might seem in the moment. That those have been hugely valuable. Again, like sort of attitudinal stuff, for want of a better word. But I think there are skills like, I hadn't really spent a lot of time understanding, a cap table and like a capital stack and what, different investors having different rights. Like that's,
Totally.
I've learned a lot about that. I've learned a lot about, I essentially chair our board. I've learned a lot about how do you chair a board successfully, versus unsuccessfully. How do you try to get consensus on a board? So I think there's been lots of real tangible learnings in addition to the grit like stuff.
Totally. That would be a real one. And then on the money raising side, you have raised, I just go off what's publicly available, 50 million plus another 40 million in debt. So 50 million equity, 40 million. Does that kind of sound right? That's Crunchbase, but
yeah, I mean, what makes everything's a bit confusing for in our case is for a number of years we were a lender, so we were originating consumer loans. We originated about $100 million in consumer loans, so that's all money we raised in a sense. We had financial institutions commit to fund those loans. We made the loans and they funded them. And so from an equity perspective, I think that's what you said is right. We've announced, I think, publicly about $50 million in equity. We've raised some venture debt in addition to that. So you're sort of broadly right.
And raising that, what along the journey, how did that go? You went idea. Do you remember where you were when you had the idea? Were you still working at your day job? When did you buy the domain? First iteration of the website? Did you raise money kind of pre-launch? How did that journey all go down?
So I left my job knowing that I wanted to try to tackle the problem of I guess because you'd say credit card debt narrowly, but more broadly people holding debt inefficiently, I guess would be sort of a
So you knew like, hey, I'm going to go start something before you resigned.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. And I was able, I think, to engineer I think a mutually positive, respectful exit. I have a lot of regard for the place that I was before and the people I worked with there, and we were able to work it out in such a way that I wanted to make sure that what I had been involved with and built where I was would continue on. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's always better in life if you can
Of course.
exit places in a way that's mutually positive rather than otherwise. It's not always possible, but it's better if you can.
Yeah.
And so I left knowing that I would start something.
Yeah.
And I was very clear about that.
Yeah.
And I knew the problem space I wanted to go after, which was the problem space of consumer finances and consumer credit.
Yeah.
I didn't know on day one what the product would be or what the business model would be.
Got it.
So I spent a bunch of time in those first months, giving that a lot of thought and talking to people, going to conferences.
Yeah.
It was a busy time. We had my wife and I had our first child around that same time as well. So I was, learning about
two startups at the same time.
That's right. 2 startups at the same time. I'm sure I made lots of mistakes on both fronts, but both are still alive and going strong. So knock on wood. Exactly.
Yeah. So what's that like? Because at least personally for me, those can be, I don't want to say depressing times. I don't mean the kids. I don't have any children of my own, but the you don't really know the business model. Socially, you're at dinner parties. Now, mind you, you were super accomplished before you jumped into startup land. So, you've done a lot. But socially, it's like, hey, what are you working on? Kind of like a project, that's the kind of thing like, you're working on something and it's not quite there yet. You might not have a company name. Socially, how did that journey go? Was it like you go into an office every day and kind of like write out 1-page memos on kind of the business plan and you kind of launch and learn and fill and kill? Or what was that like? Because there's a lot of, I would say, viewers that will see this and they're like wanting to do something.
Yeah.
But they don't have an idea. That'll be the number one thing people say. I don't really have a good idea yet. I don't really have a good idea. It sounded like you didn't have an idea, but you had a problem space, which is, probably just as important, if not more important. But you still are in an office or at a coffee shop. You're kind of doing the coffee shop shuffle. What's that like?
Yeah, I was fortunate to get space at the Digital Media Zone, which at what's now called TMU here in Toronto. They were very gracious to give me a spot to work.
Yep.
And it was awesome being around. It was awesome, first of all, having a place to go and leave my condo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially with it was terrific having a young baby at home, but it's not the best necessarily environment for work.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So it was great being able to get out of the house every morning, go to a place with other entrepreneurs, and be around people where I could ask like really the most basic question, like, what should I look for in a law firm, or what kind of registration and incorporation do I need to do? How do I think about co-founder shares, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It was great being around other people dealing with those problems. I think socially, I certainly felt some pressure to have something to show for this.
Yeah.
I think I had lots of friends from business school who went on the entrepreneurial path.
Okay.
I think there's this view that sort of MBAs lead to big corporate only, which from my experience could not be farther from the truth. Many of my friends have gone on to start companies.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of excitement. People saying, "Well, like given that you were on a corporate path, like you must be really excited if you've left that to start something." So I certainly felt some pressure in the back of my mind that after 6 months or 12 months, I wanted to have something to show for it. But I think that's good in a sense. And I agree. I hear a lot from people that are thinking about entrepreneurship that say, well, I don't have an idea. And look, I think there are people out there who have 1,000 ideas a minute and don't have that problem.
Yeah.
But many people, including me, I didn't come to this with the idea before I left my last role. I don't think you need the idea before you decide to sort of take the plunge.
Yeah.
For me, it was the act of taking the plunge, cutting ties with where I'd been working and saying, okay, like I'm going to work on this every day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure out what the idea is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in some ways, it's better not to have an idea because often the first idea isn't right.
Yeah.
So if you go into something in love with an idea,
that's a good point.
You may sort of hold on to it for too long.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into it in love with the problem space.
Yeah.
And by the way, obviously I'm not the first person to say this. Yeah. The expression goes, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. There's a ton of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an idea, but you're passionate about being an entrepreneur, and if your life circumstances allow, I would say just go for it. Cut the burn the boats
Yeah.
and get out there and say, this is what I'm going to do, and give yourself 6 months or 12 months and you'll come up with that idea.
Yeah, totally. Interesting. And you say that, but you just had a baby. And so you say, if your personal circumstances allow, how did that play into it? Was that would be pretty intense? Because I have trouble just managing my own stuff. I could almost only imagine what it would be like starting if you had like a 1-year-old at home. Was that kind of like a thing to deal with?
Look, I think there's a financial aspect to it. Luckily, I had saved up some funds and so forth from my time working in corporate. I had my wife, is a physician, so she was working. So, I was able financially to sort of.
And that's a big thing. A lot of people financially, it's kind of like
100%.
They can't take the leap, so they have to do it at night.
That's right.
That's a thing.
It's completely a thing, and I'm very sympathetic to that. I was fortunate to be in a position, again, where I had some savings and I had a spouse who was working.
Sure. Yeah.
So that made it easier. I think having there's never going to be a perfect time on the personal front with kids to take the leap.
Yeah.
At that point, I only had one kid, and actually like an infant in some ways is harder, but in some ways is easier than if you have an older child. And now I've got 3 kids.
Yeah. Wow.
So maybe, it's probably better that I didn't wait. So there's never going to be a perfect time on the personal side. I think we all learn to sort of just juggle and manage and go do it.
And you can't optimize the two, family and work. It kind of just happens as it happens.
That's right. And personally, I found it great having kids as I've gone on this journey, because kids are a great sort of like sort of leveler, or and what I mean by that is, if you have a great day at work and you come home, your kids kind of don't care and will still be in a bad mood maybe, but if you've had a really if you've had a lousy day at work and you come home, your kids also don't care about that. They don't care that you lost a deal, or some employee resigned because they didn't believe in you or whatever. They'll say, hey, let's go play, or let's go for a walk. So that's it. It's really nice to have that that other part of your life that's really uncorrelated with your professional life.
Totally. Your company's headquartered out of a WeWork, correct?
That's right.
What do you like about that? Because I see your team on the 14th floor. I have to say, very polished team. There's a lot of different companies. I think you have Klarna in this building. You have Reddit in this building. You folks are always quite polished, like well organized ship. When I see it, what do you think about the, headquartering your company at a WeWork? Do you like it? Do you lose a bit of your own office? Have you always done it that way?
I mean, for many years up until COVID, we had a series of offices. We had everybody in office.
Okay.
We were always Toronto based.
Yep.
And that's just how we worked right up until 2020.
Yep.
And in fact, we moved into a new, much bigger office on January 1st, 2020.
Okay.
And then the world promptly
90 days later.
promptly shut down. Less. That's right. I remember when we all sort of said, okay, we're going to try going working from home, and it'll just be a day or two, and then we actually never came back. Over the course of the pandemic, we went, at the beginning we were 100% Toronto based in office. We bought a company that was based in British Columbia that had a staff contingent in British Columbia, and we also started hiring across the country.
Yep.
So by the time the pandemic was over, we were not going to go back to being in office in Toronto, because we now had people all across the country.
Yep.
Partially through this acquisition, partially just through hiring. So we really made the decision at that point that we are going to be a remote first company. That said, we are going to have a headquarters here in Toronto, and we did have a couple other offices in different places at different points in time, but we've really embraced this model. We bring our people managers and functional leaders together once a quarter for 4 or 5 days of a lot of in-person planning, team building, et cetera. And our executive team comes together every month in person as well for a couple of days. So we feel we've got a good cadence. We love, we have our own office in the WeWork. It's nice to not have to worry about any of the
Totally.
stuff we used to have to worry about when
Totally.
we ran
Yeah.
our own office. We used to have someone whose full-time job
Totally.
was to manage the
Yeah.
office.
Get
And,
the Wi-Fi, get the cleaners. It's a thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
The
it's a real
cleaners,
thing.
like, oh, the coffee's out.
Yep.
Like, there's actually a lot of work that
Oh,
goes
yeah.
into
Oh yeah, it's a
making an
real
office run.
operation. Yep.
So being able to abstract that away and sort of say, look, we work, why don't you handle that,
Yep.
has been great.
Yep.
There's something lost in that not everyone I bump into in the hallway works for Borrowell.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, means I can bump into people I don't know as well, like you, and
I bug you to come on the podcast.
Exactly. If I wasn't in WeWork, I wouldn't
I'd be knocking on your door.
Exactly.
You mentioned it before. The team comes in once a month. What's kind of the organizational structure? LinkedIn says you have just over 100 folks.
That's right.
What's kind of, do you have like your SLT, your senior leadership team?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you, is that 6 people? Is it pretty traditional? What's kind of the lay of the land with how you form your team? Do you have engineers sit in a different city? Is it spread out? Do you do different setups for different departments? I know some people, they have companies where everybody's in office, but the engineers are hybrid. Because the nature of the work, how do you, I guess, team structure, hierarchy, what's your senior leadership team like, and where do folks technically live around the country?
Yeah. So I guess fairly traditional senior leadership team. I have about 6 direct reports at this point on that team. Marketing, my co-founder who runs ops and a number of other areas. She's playing a key role in product right now as well. As my co-founder Eva Wong. We have a head of revenue, head of engineering, our CFO. So we sort of have a fairly traditional group. In terms of how we organize the work. We have more organized by pod. So we have pods that are focused, that are sort of aligned to different parts of the business. A pod will be, run by a product manager with engineers, design resources, and a business lead, typically aligned to one or more pods as well. Mm-hmm. Those people all report, on a solid line basis, if you will, to their own functions. So the engineers report up to engineering, but the pods are where a lot of the really important work happens. At least all the important product work that our members see. Yep. We have other parts of the team.
So when you say members,
that's what we call our users.
Your users.
That's right.
I like that.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we call our users. So all, everything that's built for them is built by the pods. We also have other teams like our platform engineering team that sort of make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support all the development efforts. The infrastructure in place for security, et cetera. Yep. So we it's not 100% of people are in pods, but that's where a lot of the product work happens.
Got it. And you're all in Canada.
Today we are all in Canada. In the past, we've had U.S. executives as well. We've sort of gone back and forth with that model, but today we're all in Canada. Yeah.
And you're a very passionate Canadian. I can just Googling your name, I can find. What's it like? I have a big passion for. I'm more probably passionate about the country than I've ever been. What does it mean for you to kind of build an enduring? Because 11 and a half years is what your LinkedIn says since you found. That's real time at the desk, right? That's like a fifth of somebody's career you've done building the company. It's all Canadian based. You've touched thousands. You have over 1,000 reviews on Google from your members. Yeah. What's it mean to kind of build everything in Canada, be a Canadian-owned company? What does that kind of mean to you? Does that mean anything? And I'm sure it does because I've read all this stuff, all the articles you've been in. But just touch on that because a lot of people don't necessarily, I found a company here, I incorporated it there. It doesn't have a lot of meaning, but to you, I think you kind of exude that Canadian flair. Maybe if you can talk a little bit about that.
I think there's different aspects to it. So today we are Canada only from a user perspective. We never set out to be a Canada only company,
but it kind of happened that way.
I think it kind of happened in consumer fintech.
Yeah.
There are some examples of companies that go cross border. You can come up with a few, but for the most part, consumer fintech tends to be national. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the really big companies in most countries, they tend to be sort of national, and there's a lot of reason for that around regulation and around what consumer needs in different markets,
Product.
So we sort of fell into that in the sense of once it was clear that we were going to be a consumer-facing fintech.
Yeah.
We really have focused on this market, and I think we have a leadership position in this market, and we think there's still a ton of growth to be had in this market, and so doubling down on what we've built and the brand we've built, makes a lot of sense for us here. But I was never hell bent on that, if you will. I think, in fact, there's a whole bunch of advantages to being global right from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think in 99% of cases, it makes sense to not plan on being Canada only. In most industries, that's not a good strategy.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think specifically for what we're doing, it makes sense, but that's almost an edge case. Consumer fintech is like a bit of an edge case when it comes to should you go global or not from the beginning. If you're doing anything B2B, chances are you should be going global very early.
Yeah.
Because that's who your competitor is going to be ultimately.
Yeah, totally.
So I think there's the what market do I serve question. I think headquartering a company in Canada, whether you're serving the world or not, I think there's a lot to be said for it. I think we do have a terrific country.
Yeah.
We have I think a growing mass, a critical mass of successful companies with a fair amount of scale.
Yep.
I'd like to see us have more true global champions that are leading in their verticals.
Yep.
And I think we're getting there. We do have some, but we certainly have a critical mass of 100, 200, $300 million revenue companies. Companies that are worth 500 million or $1 billion plus. There's a lot you can point to, and I think that's terrific, and that's really good for the country. When I was starting Borrowell, an issue we had was there was a lack of sort of experienced executives in Canada.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we did is we went and hired executives that were based in the US that had seen scale.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's as much of a problem today. Again, we've had enough successful companies in Canada. If we're looking for someone that's been part of a 500 person or 1,000 person team, because that's where we want to go next from a scale perspective, that's just easier to find today than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
In Canada or just Toronto?
I think Toronto in particular, though we do have, there are some really successful companies that are not headquartered in Toronto. We could both come up with a list, but Toronto has become, I think, a great center, a great place to build a business.
Yeah, totally.
And as we hire executives now, we have a strong bias to Toronto, so that we can do more in person more easily.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And kind of the government. Venture-backed, startup-friendly, would you say? Getting more friendly? Obviously, everybody talks about Shred, and they love that. But would you say, if you were mentoring a young founder, would you say, hey, starting your venture-backed, I say venture-backed because you have to have context.
Yeah.
Kind of a venture-backed company in Toronto, great place to be. Would you say, hey, you probably should spend some time maybe earlier in your career in the Bay Area? There's a cultural, DNA that you'll pick up there. Or do you think you get a lot of that here?
I mean, I've never lived in the Bay Area. It's clear that I've traveled there many times. It's clear that it's such a hotbed and it's been such a hotbed for innovation and building tech companies. If someone has an opportunity early in their career to work in the Bay Area, I would say go for it. I mean, I've lived in a number of different markets, and I've benefited from being in those other markets. I don't think there's any place where I would say spend all of your career in one place.
Yeah.
But I think, sure, by all means, go spend some time in the Bay Area and then come back and take those learnings and take what's best that you've learned there and take what's best from Canada and Toronto and build here. I mean, I think we have a super city, a super region.
Yep.
We do have a strong tech culture. We have very strong engineers coming out of Waterloo and other places. So the point is sort of being able to leverage what's best. I think from a government perspective, the Canadian story is probably a bit mixed. Programs like Shred are absolutely useful, and we've certainly benefited at Borrowell. I'm not sure if I'd pick that as like the model of a great program.
Yeah.
The reality is that Shred also benefits, foreign multinationals that headquarter here.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure that's where our tax dollars should be going. Do we really want to help, some American company set up a dev shop here and
Yeah.
then have all the IP and the the ultimate wealth creation go back to the US. Like, I don't know if that's where I'd be putting tax dollars. In fact, I do know it's not where I'd be putting tax dollars. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve things.
Yep.
I'm very optimistic that with the new government we have in place under Prime Minister Carney, there'll be an opportunity to do that. I think we've had lots of encouraging signals around his desire to build.
Yeah.
So I have an open mind.
Another
I'm
FinTech
excited.
guy. He sat on the board of Stripe.
He did. That's that's absolutely right.
Have you met him? Have you interfaced?
In my life, I've met Mr. Carney. Not since he's become prime minister. Though I know some people in his government. I think we're very hopeful that we'll get some important files to FinTech over the line. For example, modernization of Canada's payment system, open banking. I'm chair of the board of FinTechs Canada, and we care a lot about these issues and are working. Working with government officials to try to get those across the line.
What's it like? What's it like on the product roadmap at Borrowell? If I asked one of your executives, "Hey, will you ever have a customer in a different country than Canada?" What would be the answer?
The answer would be, I think, we'd be opportunistic about it. We'd say if the circumstances were right, if there was a company somewhere else that it made sense to acquire or to partner with, for example, we might, but that's not the near-term focus. The near-term focus is doing more for our existing users, our existing members, and onboarding, convincing more people to give us a try. So we have over 3 million Canadians on the platform today. Wow. About 1 out of 10. That's 1 out of 10 Canadian adults.
Yeah.
So it's like always
5% of the country almost.
Yeah. Well, that's right. If you think population of 40 million, we're actually very close to 4 million users today. If you look at adults that actually have credit files, it's just over 10%.
Yeah. Do you do anything with folks that are maybe underbanked in the country? They're maybe new to the country, underbanked.
Yeah. Look, if you're new to Canada, by definition, you're new to the Canadian credit system. So we at Borrowell can absolutely help you get up to speed. Mm-hmm. It's been fun to see there's some influencers on social media who are focused entirely on folks who are new to Canada and who have done a great job, in some cases promoting us, not even in English, right? They're speaking languages that are the languages of people who are coming here. And so if we can be part of that onboarding to Canada journey, I think that's terrific. That's helpful for certainly for the new Canadians and for helping them find the best financial products for their journey.
Yeah, I was talking to another Andrew. He goes by Andy, the CEO, co-founder of Certain.
Okay.
Same thing there is, not necessarily early in their credit journey in Canada, but early in their identity journey in Canada. So he leans into that heavily. You talked about kind of some tangible learnings early in your career, raising money. Okay, I'm 25, just graduated, University of Waterloo. Okay, maybe I'm a little younger, but maybe I'm at Shopify and I'm working on an app on the side of my desk and I want to go raise money. What are some things that kind of went through your mind when you did that? Do you go to the internet? Do you look up, investors in Toronto? Did you have some help with that? Did you know who to call? Did you do the classic family, friends? Because another thing a lot of fintechs get is it's not cheap to build.
Yep.
Right. That's a thing. That's a kind of a hack on it. It's not cheap to build, and it's not cheap to acquire. You acquire these companies, and then the lifetime value. And it seems like you've kind of cracked that code on the 3 million folks. And I was looking at your Google reviews; they're all pretty much very good, all 1,000+ of them. What's kind of the fundraise journey? / advice that you would give? How did it work with you?
We had I think an extra challenging fundraising journey because our first product was a loan, as I mentioned. So we had to raise not only equity for the business, we also had to have an answer to the question of where you're going to get the capital for loans. And when we would talk to potential, sources of loan capital, like a bank, they'd say, "Well, how many loans have you made so far?" I'd say, "Well, I haven't made any. We've got this great team, but and they'd say, "Well, why don't you come talk to us once you've done $5 or $10 or $20 million of lending?"
So the bank shut off. You can't go there.
Yeah. So we had to sort of crack both of those at once. We were, I was very fortunate early on. I spent a lot of time meeting with different investors, really everyone from angels to venture capital funds to more sort of conventional bank type folks. And eventually through that process where I got a lot of advice and a bunch of no's. Some people said, yeah, this sounds great, but why don't you come back to me once you've solved the loan capital problem? Eventually got to know the really good folks at Equitable Bank, run by Andrew Moore. And they were excited about the story and were actually interested in putting up some loan capital, helping us sort of build out the credit underwriting to make sure that their loan capital was being treated appropriately, and then also play a key role in our initial equity raise. So we went right from, we didn't really do a friends and family. We went sort of right from zero to that sort of seed raise.
Got it. Do you have any regrets on how you did that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think my only regret is that it's very hard to start a lending business. So I think given what we're doing today, I think is in some ways a simpler, more streamlined story. So it just took us a while to sort of learn that. I think my life would have been easier if we'd started with this business model than the one we started with.
And brief me there. So how do you make, if you're comfortable, how do you make money today on the model?
Yeah, we make money in a couple of ways. First of all, we help people find the right financial products, the best financial products for them, given their financial goals, given their credit. So what's the best credit card or credit cards to have? What's the best bank account, et cetera? And that's all free for the user. We get paid by the bank or the FinTech when we connect them with the right customer. So it's like a kind of classic matching
total marketplace model.
Model, exactly. And then we also have a couple of some of our own services. For example, we help renters report rent payments to the credit bureaus so they get credit for making rent payments on time, and we charge for that. That's a service we provide.
Now, obviously, you have something special. That typically means, in my experience, somebody else is doing it. What's competition like? Do you have you're obviously market leader in Canada, but is it US companies coming in trying to replicate? Is it Canada companies trying to clone? Is there anything like that in the country, or you're just feeling pressure from USA companies coming in and trying to do something similar? How do you deal with competition? How has it kind of impacted your journey?
So I think if you look at our business model fairly narrowly, so if you sort of say, well, this is about credit scores and so forth, we have a couple of non-Canadian competitors that have come into the country after we launched. Very smart, well-run competitors whom we think highly of, and we certainly benchmark ourselves against. And then if you think of our competitive space more broadly in terms of helping people make financial decisions, there certainly are more competitors, some of whom are Canadian as well. My experience is that it's in some ways it's helpful having other people in your space. So for a while we were the only company offering credit scores for free in Canada. And once we had one and then sort of two other players come in, we found that we benefit a lot, for example, when they advertise. Because we do very well when it comes to search rankings. So if someone sees an ad for free credit score, more often than not, they can end up with us.
Got it. So so just to play that out, you see a competitor on a billboard sponsoring the Jays game or whatever. Top of mind, educating the market. They go to Google. And you come up.
That's right.
So you just hitch off their ad dollars.
Exactly right. I think it also makes the product seem more real when you're like, well, if it's just one person doing something, like is this a real thing versus there's actually multiple companies competing in the space, so it must be sort of a real thing.
What are some other advantages? Do you find advantages in talent? Hiring former execs? Do you find advantages in product? Oh, there's something going on over there that's working. Or are you at all even focused on that at all? Or are you more, some CEOs, founders, are very open about, competitive focus. We're like the X for Canada. You hear that a lot, especially some early stage founders in Canada. Do you view competition like that, or is it kind of like, oh, they're out there and we're just doing our own thing over here?
I think there's the Andy Grove, who was CEO of Intel, sort of said, only the paranoid survive. So I think I would never be dismissive of the very talented and smart competitors that we have, and we absolutely keep an eye on what they do. But we're not at all. This is not a day-to-day sort of thing. We're really trying to plot our own course. We need to listen to our customers, our members, 100 times more than we need to watch what our competitors are doing. That's really the path to success or failure. Is, are we serving the needs of our customers? So I think you got to find the right balance. I think ignoring competitors is not smart, but I think getting sort of like overly caught up and trying to match feature for feature and sort of living and dying by what the press release that your competitor says. I don't think that's the right path either.
Do you have any investors that send you a press release and it's like, you kind of, what's your thoughts? Because that always happens, or at least personal people, or a colleague, they'll see a press release on a competitor and you hear it from 10 friends.
Yeah.
That always happens. I'm sure it happens to you.
Yeah, I maybe in the early days that was more sort of like, more of a thing, I think, or more annoying. Like, I think overall, part of what I've done on this path, over the last 10 years is sort of mellow a little bit and not get as caught up in the day-to-day of what are competitors doing, or what are people sending me, or like, are our results this month ahead of plan or behind plan? You learn to kind of take the long view, because things are rarely either as good or as bad as they might seem in the moment.
And just on that, I read probably 7 Google reviews, skimmed probably another 20. I saw one. So you have as of today, you have 1,202 Google reviews. And this is from a user or a member. I've been using Borrowell for a while now, and I'm really happy with their service. It's incredibly easy to check and track my credit regularly, which has been a game changer for managing my finances. I also recently signed up for their Rent Advantage service. Their support team is fantastic. They respond quickly. Overall, reliable service, excellent customer support. Highly recommend. So that obviously, got to get a tissue for your
that's
your
right.
tears.
No, that
Congrats.
Nothing makes you feel.
You fight hard for those.
That's right. Nothing makes you feel better than reading positive reviews like that.
Totally. You said mellow. I'm trying to still work on that. Are you? You seem pretty casual, but you obviously have your stuff together. So, what have you always been kind of mellow throughout, early days, or?
I mean, no. I think, and I'm not even sure if I describe.
What happens if I read Glassdoor?
I
haven't printed those out. Don't worry.
I haven't looked at Glassdoor in a long time. I try not to get too caught up with that. But I think we've done our best to be great employers, and hopefully that's reflected. I mean, I'm not sure if my friends would describe me as mellow, though. I think I am more mellow or balanced or level, if you will, than I was at the beginning. I think in the early days, I mean, first of all, the stakes are higher in the early days. Like, in the early days, if you miss a quarter from revenue or whatever, you may not survive because you're burning cash.
You could die,
right? So I think first of all, the stakes aren't life or death like that in quite the same way. Thankfully now. But I think also you just learn that like you won't emotionally survive as a human if you let yourself go on these big like up and down cycles. So you're kind of like, you know what I mean? I kind of like, if something goes now, my co-founder and I often, if something goes really badly or well, you're like, okay, like well, let's figure it out. You know, if it's bad news, you're like, okay, we're gonna figure it out tomorrow. Like let's go have dinner with our families.
Yep. Do you how many one-on-ones do you reschedule a week?
I don't reschedule that many. I feel like it's not that often that I'll have some, I don't know, major, in the moment fire that can't wait an hour. I try hard not to. I try to be a source of stability in the company, not a source of chaos.
That's a good one.
There's enough.
I could steal that from you a bit. But again, we are at the earlier days. We're a few. That's the whole thing with this podcast. I try and bring on guests that are like 10x where we are. 10x me as a founder, 10x us as a company. So we're very early days. So maybe the chaos is good, driven by me. But I
absolutely.
Okay, so you're pretty on schedule. What are some kind of closing things out? Like what are some tools I'd say that you can't live without? Like what you can't say email or Slack. What are you like in every day, or something you think is, or maybe it's a template or a process model. I've heard people, they write down their thoughts before they go to bed. Something that you definitely think not many people do. It's kind of an Andrew only thing.
I mean, I think you got to decide what keeps you sort of sane as a human and as a founder. And for me, that's definitely exercise. So I love to go for runs. That's where I process a lot of my thinking. If I've got a hard problem that I'm trying to think through, or I'll go cycling or whatever.
Okay.
So that's, I don't think that's unique, but that certainly is a really important part of my day.
Do you do that at the start of the day? Do you do that ad hoc when there's a thing going on? See, I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And I'll go like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
or 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. Just whenever kind of like I need it. I don't schedule it in. Do you? I mean, biking's a bit more logistics, but run you can quickly get it. What do you kind of schedule?
I think it
in
depends. So I would say I've got a good routine, sort of like first thing in the morning.
Okay.
I'll go down and have breakfast with my my 9-year-old who likes to wake up early.
Okay.
My other 2 kids sleep in, but she wakes up early.
Clock.
That's right. So we'll go have a quick breakfast, and then I'll either hop on the bike indoors or do something where I can use that time to like just read through email, read through the news, like sort of that. And then at the end of the day, if I've had either a good news or bad news kind of day, or I just need to think through something, that's when I'll often go for that run at the end of the day to really help me process and again sort of level out before coming home for whatever it is to work or see my family or what have you.
Yeah. How many good news days do you think you have a month?
I guess it depends on the magnitude. I mean, just reading a great customer review is so satisfying, right? So I think we have lots of good news moments, and I think part of the journey also is you've got to find ways to celebrate those good news moments. I think we didn't do a great job of that early on. You sort of set benchmarks like why aren't we Facebook IPOing yet after 3 years? Like if you set benchmarks that are impossible, you're just not going to find joy. And I think also keeping sane on this journey and life probably more broadly is just finding sources of joy. So you've got to celebrate the wins. Yeah. We have a Slack channel that pulls in every review from the Play Store and from the App Store, positive or negative. But I love going through that a couple of times a day and putting positive emojis on the positive ones, for example. So you've got to celebrate the good news, and then when the bad news comes, as it inevitably does, you just kind of say, okay, I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been very very awesome. If I'm the only person that views this, I'll be the first to view this, but I know a lot of people do view these. So I've learned a lot. So thank you. Just selfishly, thank you for spending the time with me, and really appreciate the time today.
Well, thanks for doing these.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Great.